Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly shape their reality with just a few spoken words, while you're standing in front of the mirror every morning, repeating the same affirmations over and over, yet nothing in your life seems to change? What if I told you that the difference has nothing to do with luck, privilege, or even the amount of faith you think you have? What if the secret lies in something far more ancient, far more powerful than any modern manifestation technique? You've ever tried? Think about it for a moment. Has this ever happened to you? You declare with all your willpower that abundance is coming your way, that success is just around the corner, that your life is transforming. But deep down, there's a whisper of doubt that says, this isn't working. And guess what happens? Exactly that. It doesn't work. But here's what most people don't understand. It's not because the universe isn't listening. It's because you're not speaking the language the universe actually responds to. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, let me share something that might completely shift your understanding of reality itself. There's an ancient truth hidden in plain sight, one that's been whispered through sacred texts, understood by mystics, and proven by those who've mastered the art of conscious creation. It's this. Your words are not simply sounds that vanish into thin air. They are living forces. They are creative commands. They are divine decrees that set the entire quantum field of reality into motion. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. It might even challenge everything you thought you knew about how manifestation actually works. You see, most people treat words like they're meaningless, like they're just casual expressions of whatever thoughts happen to be floating through their minds. They complain without thinking. They describe their problems in vivid detail. They declare limitations as if they're stating objective facts. And then they wonder why their reality keeps reflecting those very same patterns back to them. But there's a sacred principle that exists at the very foundation of creation itself. Long before modern science discovered quantum physics, long before we understood vibrational frequencies and energy fields, there was a truth spoken into existence. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This isn't just poetic language or religious rhetoric. This is describing the fundamental mechanism through which reality itself comes into being. The Word, not as mere vocabulary, but as the conscious creative force of existence, is what brings form out of formlessness, light out of darkness, something out of nothing. What you're about to understand is that you possess this same creative power right now, in this very moment. Every single syllable you speak carries with it a frequency, an intention, a command that the universe is receiving and responding to with perfect precision. The question isn't whether your words have power. The question is, are you using that power consciously, or are you creating your reality by default, speaking limitation when you could be speaking possibility, declaring defeat when you could be commanding victory? And here's where everything changes. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's something happening behind the scenes of your reality that most people completely miss. When you speak, you're not just expressing an opinion or describing what you see in front of you. You're actually issuing a command to the very fabric of existence. Think about the moment of creation described in those ancient texts. When the divine voice declared, "Let there be light," what happened? Light didn't gradually appear after days of hoping and wishing. It didn't manifest because of some cosmic negotiation. It simply was. Instantly, completely, without question. That wasn't a request. It wasn't a prayer filled with uncertainty. It was a decree so absolute, so certain, that reality had no choice but to obey. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything. You were made. in that same image, with that same creative authority embedded into the very core of your being. Every time you open your mouth and allow words to flow out, you're participating in that same creative process. But here's where most people get it tragically wrong. They're speaking with the voice of a beggar when they should be speaking with the authority of a creator. There's a massive difference between saying, "I hope things get better," and declaring, "My life is transforming now." One is a wish, floating aimlessly in the wind. The other is a cosmic command that sets forces into motion. The impact of this understanding cannot be overstated. When God said, "Let there be light," there was no internal contradiction, no hidden doubt, no voice in the background saying, "But what if it doesn't work?" The declaration was total, the conviction was absolute, the certainty was unshakable, and that's precisely why it manifested instantly. Now compare that to how most people use affirmations. They stand in front of the mirror and say, "I am abundant, I am successful, I am worthy," while every cell in their body is screaming the opposite message. They're trying to convince themselves rather than commanding reality. This is the journey so many people are on without even realizing it. They've learned the words, memorized the phrases, practiced the techniques, but they haven't made the crucial shift from petition to proclamation. And this is where the transformation actually happens, in that space between what you say with your mouth and what you believe in the deepest chambers of your heart. Because the universe doesn't respond to the surface level of your speech. It responds to the vibrational frequency that your words carry. If you're declaring abundance while broadcasting the frequency of lack, which signal do you think the universe receives? The louder one. Always the louder one. And unfortunately, your subconscious beliefs, your hidden doubts, your unexamined fears, they broadcast at a frequency that drowns out your conscious affirmations every single time. If this resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. This is where we dive deep into manifestation, consciousness, and real transformation, not just theory, but activation. Has this ever happened to you? You commit to a new way of speaking. You decide to be more positive. You start using powerful declarations, and for a day or two you feel great. But then nothing changes in your external reality, and that little voice creeps back in. "See, I knew this wouldn't work. This stuff isn't real. I'm just fooling myself." And in that moment, you've just issued the most powerful decree of all. The decree of defeat, the proclamation of impossibility, the command that tells the universe to maintain the status quo. What you need to understand is that doubt isn't just an emotion. Doubt is a creative force. Fear isn't just a feeling. Fear is a declaration. Every time that internal voice says, "This isn't going to work," you're speaking with absolute certainty, just in the opposite direction of what you consciously desire. And because that certainty is so strong, because that conviction runs so deep, the universe says, "Okay, if you're that sure it won't work, then let's make sure it doesn't work." You're still creating with your words. You're still manifesting with your declarations. You're just doing it unconsciously, in reverse, building the very reality you're trying to escape. The revelations here go even deeper, because this isn't about positive thinking or fake optimism. This is about recognizing that your word is law in your personal universe. Every syllable is legislation. Every sentence is a statute. Every declaration is a binding contract with existence itself. And the hidden truth is that you've been signing contracts you never meant to sign, creating realities you never consciously chose, all because you didn't understand the true power of the instrument you're using every single day. Write in the comments, "My words carry power," because acknowledging this truth is the first step toward using it intentionally. Now let me show you something that ancient wisdom understood far better than our modern world does. There's a concept that existed long before self-help books and manifestation courses, something the ancient Greeks called logos. And no, this isn't just some dusty philosophical idea that belongs in university lectures. Logos was understood as the fundamental, organizing principle of the entire cosmos, the divine intelligence that speaks reality into existence. It was the word, yes, but more than that. It was the living, breathing, creative force that continues to shape every atom, every galaxy, every moment of existence right now. The sages of old recognized something profound that we've largely forgotten in our age of materialism. They understood that sound, speech, and conscious intention aren't separate from physical reality. They're the very mechanism through which physical reality comes into being. When the texts say, "The Word was with God," they're describing an inseparable relationship between consciousness and manifestation, between speaking and creating, between declaration and materialization. This isn't mythology or superstition. This is describing the actual machinery of existence operating at its most fundamental level. Here's where your journey takes a dramatic turn, where everything you thought you knew gets flipped on its head. You see, when those ancient texts declared that you were made in the image and likeness of the divine, they weren't talking about your physical appearance. The image being referenced is your creative capacity, your ability to speak worlds into existence within your own sphere of influence. You carry that same logos, that same creative principle woven into the fabric of your being. The power that spoke stars into existence, that organized chaos into cosmos, that brought light out of darkness. That power flows through you every time you speak. But here's the hidden truth that most spiritual teachers won't tell you directly. This isn't about playing around with positive affirmations or pretending everything is perfect when it's not. This is about understanding that you're operating powerful cosmic machinery every moment of every day, whether you realize it or not. The laws that govern how your words create reality are the same laws that keep planets in orbit, the same principles that organize atoms into molecules, the same forces that maintain the delicate balance of the entire universe. You're not learning some new trick. You're remembering how to consciously use a power you've been wielding unconsciously your entire life. The impact of this realization is staggering when you really let it sink in. Every complaint you've ever uttered wasn't just venting frustration. It was a creative command organizing your future experiences. Every limitation you've declared wasn't just an observation, it was cosmic legislation binding you to that constraint. Every time you said, "I can't, I'm not, it's impossible," you were using the exact same creative force that shapes galaxies, just pointing it in the opposite direction of your desires. You've been a powerful creator all along. You've just been creating unconsciously, by default, according to inherited patterns and cultural programming. Think about what this means for your transformation. The moment you genuinely recognize that your voice carries the same creative authority that organized the cosmos, something fundamental shifts in how you relate to your words. You can't be casual anymore. You can't just let anything fly out of your mouth without consideration. Every sentence becomes sacred. Every declaration becomes intentional. Every word becomes a conscious choice about what you're building in your reality. This is why visualization alone often fails, why positive thinking by itself rarely creates lasting change. Because you can visualize abundance all day long, but if your words are constantly declaring scarcity, which creative force do you think wins? Your thoughts matter, absolutely, but your spoken words carry a crystallizing power that thoughts alone don't possess. When thought becomes word, when internal possibility becomes external declaration, that's when the quantum field of infinite potential begins to collapse into specific manifestation. The revelations keep unfolding. Because this understanding connects to every ancient wisdom tradition across cultures and throughout history. The Egyptian mystery schools, the Vedic sages, the Hebrew mystics, the indigenous shamans, they all understood this same truth, just expressed through different cultural languages. They all knew that sound is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. between the spiritual and the material, between what could be and what is. They treated words as sacred because they recognized words as creative implements of divine power. And here's what makes this moment in your life so crucial. You're not reading this by accident. Something in you is ready to reclaim this power consciously. Something in you recognizes that you've been speaking your life into existence all along, and now it's time to do it deliberately, powerfully, aligned with your highest vision rather than your deepest fears. Write in the comments, "I am a conscious creator," because declaring this begins to activate the dormant power that's been waiting for you to claim it. Now let me reveal something that's happening in your life right at this very moment, something so pervasive that you've probably never even noticed it. Walk through your average day and pay attention to the stream of words flowing out of your mouth, not just in important conversations, but in those casual moments, the throwaway comments, the automatic responses. This traffic is killing me. I never have enough time. I can't afford that. This always happens to me. I'm so tired of this. These aren't just innocent expressions of temporary frustration. These are creative declarations actively shaping your tomorrow. Most people are essentially sleepwalking through their own creative process. They're wielding immense power with zero awareness, like a child randomly pressing buttons on a control panel that operates the entire building. And then they wonder why their life feels chaotic, why nothing ever seems to change, why the same patterns keep repeating no matter how hard they try to fix things on the surface level. The answer is brutally simple. You're commanding these experiences into existence with your own mouth, moment by moment. Conversation by conversation, complaint by complaint. Here's what's happening behind the scenes of your reality. Every time you describe your problems in vivid detail, you're not just processing your emotions or seeking sympathy. You're reinforcing the neural pathways that create those problems. You're broadcasting a frequency that attracts more of the same. You're literally instructing the universe to give you more evidence that supports your narrative. When you say, "I always get sick this time of year," you're not making a casual observation about past patterns. You're programming your biology to fulfill that prophecy. Your immune system is listening. Your cells are receiving instructions. Your body is remarkably obedient to the commands it receives from your conscious mind through the vehicle of spoken words. The transformation that needs to happen isn't complicated, but it does require a decision. A fundamental shift in how you relate to language itself. You need to start treating your words the way an ancient priest would treat sacred utterances, the way a surgeon treats a scalpel, the way an architect treats the blueprints that will determine whether a building stands or collapses, because that's exactly what your words are. They're the architectural plans for your future experiences. And right now, most people are drawing up blueprints for structures they would never want to live in. But here's where the real power emerges, where everything changes from theory to tangible results. When you begin to speak with the same certainty that creation itself operates from, when your words carry zero contradiction, zero doubt, zero hidden reservations, reality loses its ability to resist you. Think about that for a moment. When the creative force of the universe declared, "Let there be light," there was no cosmic committee meeting to decide whether that was a good idea. There was no negotiation, no hesitation, no maybe or hopefully or if conditions are right. It was a command so absolute that existence itself had to reorganize to match it. You have access to that same authority right now, in this moment, not theoretically, not someday when you're more spiritual or more evolved or more worthy. Right now, the only difference between words that create powerfully and words that create weakly is the level of conviction behind them. When you say, "I am abundant," while secretly believing, but not really, you've just cancelled your own creative command. When you declare, "I am healthy," while simultaneously monitoring every sensation in your body for signs of illness. You're broadcasting mixed signals and getting mixed results. The impact of speaking with absolute certainty is that the quantum field of possibilities has no choice but to respond. It's not personal. It's not about whether you deserve it or whether you've earned it. It's mechanical, automatic, lawful. The universe doesn't judge the content of your declarations as good or bad, worthy or unworthy. It simply reflects back the frequency of conviction with which you declare them. This is why people who have delusional confidence often achieve things that more qualified, more deserving people never do. They're not actually delusional. They're accessing the same creative mechanism that shapes reality. They're just doing it unconsciously, through sheer force of certainty. The journey from unconscious to conscious creation is the most important transformation any human being can undergo. It's the difference between being tossed around by circumstances and commanding circumstances to align with your vision. It's the difference between hoping things get better and decreeing that they must. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need anyone's permission to step into this authority. You don't need to be ordained or initiated or certified. You simply need to recognize that you already possess the power. You've just been using it backwards. Write in the comments, "I speak with divine authority." Because the moment you declare this, you're beginning to recalibrate your relationship with the creative power of your own voice. Now, let me show you exactly how this unconscious creation operates in real time, because understanding this mechanism will completely change how you move through the world. Think about the last time you said something like, "Mondays are always terrible," or "I never catch a break," or "good things never last." These feel like harmless observations, don't they? Just casual commentary on your experience. But here's what's actually happening in those moments. You're sending precise instructions to the organizing intelligence of your reality. You're programming your future experiences with the same definitiveness as someone coding software or writing legislation. The hidden truth is that the universe operates with perfect obedience. It doesn't question your commands. It doesn't second-guess whether you really mean what you're saying. It doesn't distinguish between statements you make casually over coffee and declarations you make during meditation. Every word carries equal creative weight, because every word broadcasts a frequency, and frequency is the language the quantum field actually understands. When you casually mention that money never stretches far enough, you're not describing a temporary circumstance that you're actively working to change. You're declaring a permanent law governing your financial reality. Here's where the impact becomes staggering. The universe hears that statement and says, "Okay, this person has clearly decided that money doesn't stretch for them. Let me make absolutely certain that remains their consistent experience." And it does, with mathematical precision. Not because the universe is cruel or because you're being punished, but because you're operating a creative mechanism according to its exact design. You're getting exactly what you've ordered, even though you never consciously meant to place that order. If you found value in what we explored today, hit that like button, not as a formality, but as a way of telling the universe, yes, more of this. This is the journey that most people are on without realizing it. They're walking through life, narrating their own limitations, announcing their problems, declaring their impossibilities, and then feeling victimized by circumstances that seem beyond their control. But nothing is beyond your control when you understand that control operates primarily through the words you choose. The circumstances aren't creating your language. Your language is creating your circumstances. You're not describing reality, you're prescribing it. Let me go even deeper into this mechanism, because the revelations here unlock genuine transformation. When you say this situation is impossible, you've just issued a cosmic restraining order against solutions. You've literally commanded possibility to stay away from you. The quantum field of infinite potential heard that declaration and immediately began filtering your perception, closing doors, redirecting opportunities away from you, not out of punishment, but out of perfect compliance with your stated position. You declared impossibility, so impossibility is what gets delivered to your doorstep. The mindset shift required here is recognizing that you're in constant dialogue with existence itself. Every moment of every day, you're having a conversation with the creative forces that shape your reality. And just like in any relationship, what you consistently communicate becomes what you consistently experience. If you're constantly telling reality that life is hard, that people can't be trusted, that success is for other people, that you never get what you want, reality is listening intently and working overtime to give you exactly that experience. But here's what changes everything about this understanding. The same mechanism that's been working against you can instantly begin working for you the moment you make a different decision about how you use language. When you shift from money never stretches to money flows to me easily, you're not just thinking positive thoughts, you're issuing a completely different set of instructions to the organizing principle of your financial reality. When you change "this is impossible" to "I'm discovering the solution," you're literally reprogramming the quantum field to start revealing pathways that were invisible to you before. The transformation isn't gradual or mystical, it's immediate and mechanical. The moment you declare something different with genuine conviction, the universe begins reorganizing probabilities to match your new declaration. Opportunities that were blocked suddenly open. People who have what you need mysteriously appear in your path. Solutions emerge from unexpected directions, not because you got lucky or because the universe suddenly decided to favor you, but because you stopped commanding impossibility and started commanding possibility. This is operating in your life right now, whether you're aware of it or not. Every casual complaint is a creative command. Every repeated phrase is a reinforced reality. Every declaration of limitation is cosmic legislation binding you to that constraint. And the most powerful part? You can change any of it the instant you recognize what you've been doing and make a conscious decision to do something different. Write in the comments, "I choose my words consciously," because making that declaration is the first step toward taking full ownership of the reality you're creating moment by moment. Now, let me reveal something that's both liberating and terrifying at the same time. The vast majority of good, decent, hard-working people who are genuinely trying to improve their lives are unknowingly sabotaging themselves with every conversation they have. They wake up with good intentions, they read inspiring books, they set goals, they take action, and yet year after year they find themselves stuck in the same patterns, facing the same obstacles, experiencing the same frustrations, and they genuinely cannot understand why their sincere efforts aren't producing different results. The answer lies in something so subtle that it operates completely beneath conscious awareness. These people are spending their entire day narrating their own defeat. They're walking through life as the storyteller of their own limitations, the author of their own impossibilities, the scriptwriter of their own disappointments. And they're doing it so casually, so automatically, that they don't even recognize they're doing it. Of course I'm stressed. Look at everything I have to deal with. I'd love to travel more, but I just can't afford it. I'm not lucky like those people. Things like that don't happen to someone like me. These aren't just observations. These are creative declarations, actively writing the next chapter of their story. The hidden truth is that unconscious manifestation is far more powerful than conscious manifestation for most people, simply because they spend so much more time doing it. You might dedicate 15 minutes in the morning to positive affirmations, but then you spend the next 15 hours reinforcing every limitation you claim you want to transcend. You declare abundance for a few moments, then spend the rest of the day describing in vivid detail how broke you are, how expensive everything is, how you never have enough. Which message do you think is louder? Which frequency do you think dominates your energetic broadcast? This is the journey that keeps people trapped in cycles they desperately want to break free from. They're spiritually aware enough to know that thoughts create reality, but they haven't yet understood that words crystallize thoughts into material form. They're conscious enough to visualize better outcomes, but unconscious about the constant stream of limiting declarations flowing from their mouths hour after hour. And here's the impact. The universe doesn't average out your mixed signals. It responds to the dominant frequency you're broadcasting, and for most people, that dominant frequency is complaint, worry, doubt, and limitation. But let me take you deeper into the mechanics of how this actually works, because understanding this will give you the power to change it. Every single word you speak carries a unique energetic signature, as distinctive and specific as your fingerprint or your DNA. This isn't metaphorical or poetic. This is describing actual vibrational physics. When you say the word abundance, that word generates a specific frequency pattern. When you say the word scarcity, that's a completely different frequency pattern. And your entire nervous system, your cellular structure, your energetic field, they all resonate with whichever frequency you're generating through your speech. The revelations here get even more profound because it's not just the individual words that matter. It's the entire context, the emotion behind them, the belief system supporting them, the conviction or doubt coloring them. When you describe your problems in exquisite detail, when you tell the story of everything that's going wrong, when you enumerate all the reasons something can't work, you're not just venting or processing. You're tuning yourself, like tuning a radio dial, to the exact frequency of more problems. You're broadcasting a signal that says, send me more of this experience, and the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, obliges with precision. This is why you can't think your way out of patterns you've spoken your way into. You can't visualize abundance while describing scarcity. You can't affirm health while narrating illness. You can't declare possibility while explaining impossibility. The energetic signature of what you're consistently speaking will always override the fleeting thoughts of what you're occasionally visualizing. Your words are the final vote. Your declarations are the executive decision. Whatever you speak most consistently, most emotionally, most convincingly, that becomes the reality you inhabit. The transformation available to you right now is recognizing that you've been tuning your entire being to frequencies you don't actually want to experience. Every complaint has been tuning you to more frustration. Every limitation you've declared has been tuning you to more constraint. Every problem you've described in detail has been tuning you to more difficulty. And the beautiful thing is, the moment you recognize this, the moment you see how the mechanism actually operates, you gain the power to tune yourself differently. Write in the comments, I broadcast frequencies of abundance, because when you declare this, you're beginning to shift the energetic signature of your entire existence toward what you actually want to experience. Now, here's where genuine transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable once you understand this one crucial principle. You have the power to look at the exact same situation and describe it from two completely different frequencies, and whichever frequency you choose determines which version of that situation you'll continue experiencing. Think about that. The external circumstances might be identical, but your description of them is what locks you into one reality or opens a portal to another. Let me give you a concrete example of how this operates in real life. Imagine you're facing a financial challenge. Same bank account, same bills, same numbers. One person looks at it and says, "I'm broke, I'm always struggling, money problems never end for me." Another person looks at the identical situation and says, "I'm in a temporary transition. Resources are reorganizing in my favor. I'm learning to create wealth from a new level of consciousness." Same situation, radically different declarations. And here's what happens behind the scenes. The first person just locked themselves into prolonged financial struggle because they declared it as their permanent identity. The second person opened an energetic pathway for solutions, opportunities and resources to flow toward them, because they declared themselves as someone in transformation rather than someone in permanent lack. The hidden truth is that you're never describing objective reality when you speak. You're always choosing which version of reality to reinforce and amplify. Every situation contains multiple potential outcomes, multiple possible trajectories, multiple available futures. Your words are the selector switch determining which of those possibilities gets activated and brought into manifestation. When you complain, you're selecting the worst possible timeline. When you declare transformation, you're selecting an ascending path. It really is that mechanical, that precise, that immediate in its impact. This journey of conscious creation requires you to recognize that you're essentially a gardener working in an invisible field of infinite possibilities. But instead of planting physical seeds in soil, you're planting vibrational seeds in the quantum field through the power of your spoken word. And just like a physical garden, what grows depends entirely on what you plant. If you plant seeds of complaint, you harvest crops of frustration. If you plant seeds of limitation, you harvest experiences of constraint. If you plant seeds of possibility, you harvest opportunities and breakthroughs. The revelations here go even deeper because most people are planting their garden unconsciously, randomly, without any awareness of what they're putting into the ground. They're dropping seeds of worry, seeds of doubt, seeds of impossibility, and then they're genuinely confused when their life produces a harvest of struggle and disappointment. They're looking at the crops coming up and saying, "Why is this happening to me?" without recognizing that they planted every single seed themselves through the words they spoke day after day, conversation after conversation, thought after verbalized thought. But here's what changes everything about this understanding. The moment you recognize that you're a gardener, that your voice is the tool you use to plant seeds, that every word is determining what grows in your reality, you gain the power to become intentional about what you're cultivating. You stop carelessly tossing seeds of negativity into your field. You stop planting limitations and calling it being realistic. You stop sowing impossibility and wondering why miracles never happen for you. The transformation available in this moment is recognizing that every single time you open your mouth, you're making a choice about what you're planting. Every conversation is a planting session. Every declaration is putting something into the ground that will eventually sprout and grow and produce a harvest in your lived experience. And the beautiful thing about this mechanism is that it doesn't care about your past. It doesn't matter what you planted yesterday or last year or for the past 20 years. The field is always ready to grow whatever you plant today. This is the mindset shift that separates people who transform their lives from people who stay stuck forever talking about transformation. The ones who actually change their reality understand that they're gardeners with absolute authority over what gets planted in their field. They become fiercely protective of their garden. They don't let just any seed get dropped into their soil. They don't allow careless complaints to contaminate their field. They don't permit limiting declarations to take root. They consciously, deliberately, intentionally plant only seeds that will produce the harvest they actually want to experience. The impact of living this way is that your entire life begins to change, not someday in the distant future, but immediately, because seeds planted today are already growing beneath the surface, even before you see the shoots emerging into visible reality. Every powerful declaration you make is a seed working underground, organizing resources, attracting opportunities, shifting probabilities in your favor. Write in the comments, "I plant seeds of possibility," because making that declaration is itself a powerful seed that begins growing the moment you speak it into existence. Now, let me show you why most people's manifestation practices fail despite their best intentions and genuine effort. They've learned about affirmations, they've created vision boards, they've practiced visualization, but their results remain frustratingly minimal. And the reason is simple yet profound. They're trying to plant one seed of positivity in a garden that's completely overrun with weeds of negativity. They're speaking one powerful declaration in the morning and then spending the next 16 hours contradicting it with every casual conversation they have. Think about the actual math of this for a moment. You spend 5 minutes doing affirmations, declaring abundance, visualizing success, speaking words of possibility. That's 5 minutes of planting good seeds. Then you spend the rest of your waking hours complaining about your job, worrying about money, describing everything that's going wrong, explaining to anyone who'll listen why your life is so difficult. That's potentially 1,000 minutes of planting seeds of limitation for every 5 minutes of planting seeds of possibility. Which crop do you think is going to dominate your harvest? The transformation that needs to happen isn't about finding the perfect affirmation or the most powerful visualization technique. It's about making elevated speech your default mode of expression, not an occasional practice you do when you remember. Real change happens when you become someone who naturally speaks from possibility rather than problem, who instinctively describes situations in terms of their potential rather than their limitations, who habitually declares what's emerging rather than what's lacking. This is the journey that separates temporary motivation from permanent transformation. Anyone can get excited for a few days and speak positively when they're feeling inspired. But what happens when life challenges you? What comes out of your mouth when you're stressed, frustrated, scared, or overwhelmed? That's when your true default programming reveals itself. And for most people, stress causes them to immediately revert to old patterns of negative declaration, complaint, and limitation. All those positive seeds they planted get choked out by the weeds that grow much faster and much stronger because they're more deeply rooted. The revelations here connect to something ancient, wisdom traditions understood far better than our modern culture does. If you look at the great civilizations that mastered human potential, the Egyptian mystery schools, the Vedic traditions of India, the indigenous shamanic lineages, they all treated words as sacred instruments requiring tremendous care and reverence. They didn't just casually let anything flow out of their mouths. They understood that speech was a form of magic, a technology of consciousness, a creative power that demanded the same respect a surgeon gives to a scalpel. In ancient Egypt, there were words that could only be spoken by initiated priests who had spent years training not just their voices, but their entire consciousness. This wasn't some arbitrary power hierarchy or religious elitism. This was recognition that certain combinations of sounds, when spoken with the right intention and the right energetic signature, could literally alter physical reality. They understood that words improperly wielded could cause harm, could create chaos, could manifest disasters. So they trained extensively to ensure that when sacred words were spoken, they were spoken with perfect alignment, perfect intention, perfect frequency. The hidden truth is that you and I are wielding this same power every single day, but we're doing it with the carelessness of a child playing with a loaded weapon. We treat words like they're disposable, meaningless, just sounds we make to fill silence or express momentary emotions. But the ancient mystics knew better. They understood that every utterance shapes reality, every declaration creates consequences, every word plants seeds that will inevitably produce a harvest. The impact of adopting this ancient perspective is immediate and profound. When you start treating your words as sacred creative instruments, you become much more selective about what you allow to pass through your lips. You pause before complaining. You think before describing your problems. You consciously choose declarations of possibility over descriptions of limitation. This isn't about being fake or pretending problems don't exist. It's about recognizing that how you speak about problems determines whether they persist or transform. The mindset required here is understanding that you're not just having casual conversations throughout your day. You're conducting ceremonies of creation with every sentence. You're performing acts of cosmic significance with every declaration. The ancient priests knew this, which is why they made speech ceremonial, intentional, sacred. And while you don't need to adopt ancient rituals or formal practices, you do need to reclaim that same level of reverence for the creative power flowing through your voice. Write in the comments, "My words are sacred instruments," because declaring this begins to shift your relationship with language from casual to ceremonial, from unconscious to sacred. Now, let me reveal something that will completely change how you understand the relationship between sound, consciousness, and physical reality. In the ancient temples of Egypt, there existed a level of knowledge about language that we've almost completely lost in modern times. The priests understood that certain divine names, specific combinations of sounds, carried such concentrated power that speaking them, incorrectly or with the wrong intention, could literally cause harm to the speaker and to the fabric of reality around them. This wasn't superstition or religious control. This was sophisticated understanding of how vibrational frequencies interact with the material world. These initiated priests didn't just memorize the pronunciation of sacred words. They spent years, sometimes decades, learning to embody the frequency those words represented. They had to purify their consciousness, discipline their minds, stabilize their emotions, and align their entire being with the vibration they would eventually speak into manifestation. Only when they could hold that frequency perfectly, only when their internal state matched the power of the word they were speaking, were they permitted to voice those sacred names, because they understood something crucial. The power isn't in the word itself. It's in the alignment between the word and the consciousness speaking it. This is the hidden truth that modern spirituality often misses. People think they can just repeat certain words or phrases and expect miraculous results. But the ancient initiates knew that words without the corresponding internal frequency are just noise. It's like trying to play a symphony on an out-of-tune instrument. The notes might be correct, but the sound produced is dissonant and ineffective. The transformation these priests underwent wasn't about learning pronunciation. It was about becoming someone whose entire being resonated at the frequency of divine creative power. The revelations get even more precise when you look at what the Vedic sages of ancient India discovered. They developed an entire science called mantra yoga, and it wasn't based on belief or faith or mystical experience alone. It was based on thousands of years of systematic observation about how specific sounds affect consciousness and matter. They discovered that Sanskrit isn't just a language, it's a technology. Each syllable was designed to produce specific effects in the human nervous system, in the energy field, in the fabric of reality itself. The impact of their discoveries is staggering when you really understand what they found. They mapped out how the sound Om creates a particular resonance that aligns human consciousness with the fundamental vibration of existence. They understood that the sound ah opens the heart center and creates expansion. They knew that specific combinations of syllables could heal disease, alter emotional states, shift perception, and even affect physical matter at a distance. This wasn't abstract philosophy. This was repeatable, observable, scientific knowledge about the relationship between sound and reality. Behind the scenes of these ancient practices was a profound understanding that we're only beginning to rediscover through modern physics. Sound creates geometric patterns. Frequency organizes matter. Vibration is the underlying structure of everything that exists. When those Vedic sages chanted their mantras, they weren't just making devotional noise. They were using their voices as precision instruments to reorganize the quantum field, to shift probabilities, to create specific outcomes in physical reality through the pure power of properly executed sound. The journey these traditions invite us on is recognizing that language itself is a form of sacred technology that most of us are using with the sophistication of someone trying to perform. We have access to the same creative power those ancient masters wielded, but we're completely unconscious of how to use it properly. We're speaking random syllables with random intentions and random emotional charges, then wondering why our words don't manifest the reality we desire. What separates someone who creates powerfully with words from someone who just talks a lot is this understanding of frequency alignment. The ancient initiates knew they had to become the vibration before they could speak the vibration. They had to embody the consciousness before they could express it through sound. This is why two people can say identical words and produce completely different results. One person is aligned with the frequency their words carry. The other person is just moving their mouth and hoping something happens. The transformation available to you right now is recognizing that every word you speak is either aligned with your highest vision or contradicting it based on the frequency you're broadcasting when you speak it. You don't need to learn Sanskrit or spend decades in a temple, but you do need to understand that words work most powerfully when your internal state matches the truth you're declaring. Write in the comments, "I embody what I speak," because that declaration itself begins to activate the alignment between your consciousness and the creative power of your words. Now let me show you something that bridges ancient wisdom with modern science in a way that makes this entire concept undeniable. There's a field of study called cymatics that literally allows you to see what sound does to matter. When scientists place sand or water on a vibrating plate and introduce different frequencies, something extraordinary happens. The particles organize themselves into perfect geometric patterns, change the frequency, and the pattern instantly transforms into a completely different configuration. Low frequencies create simple patterns. High frequencies create intricate, beautiful, almost impossibly complex designs. Here's where this gets personal and profound. Your body is approximately 70% water. Think about that for a moment. You're not just a solid mass. You're a walking, breathing body of water held together by consciousness. And every single word you speak sends vibrational frequencies rippling through that internal ocean. When you speak words of love, gratitude, joy, possibility, you're creating beautiful geometric patterns in the water that makes up your cells, your tissues, your organs. When you speak words of hate, fear, scarcity, impossibility, you're creating chaotic, dissonant patterns that literally disrupt the harmony of your physical form. The hidden truth is that you're not separate from your words. You're the first recipient of every frequency you broadcast. Before your words affect anyone else or anything in your external environment, they're restructuring the water inside your own body. This is why people who constantly complain tend to be sick. This is why chronic negativity creates chronic illness. This is why your emotional state directly impacts your physical health. You're literally soaking your cells in whatever frequency your words carry, moment after moment, day after day. The transformation available here is recognizing that every time you speak, you're performing an act of either healing or harm on your own biology. This isn't metaphorical. This isn't philosophical. This is demonstrable physics. Sound affects matter. Frequency reorganizes structure. Words create patterns. And you are the living laboratory where all of this is happening in real time, whether you're conscious of it or not. But let me take you even deeper into the mechanics of how reality actually works at its most fundamental level, because this is where ancient mysticism and quantum physics converge in the most extraordinary way. Physicists have discovered something that mystics have been saying. For thousands of years, matter doesn't exist as something solid and fixed until it's observed. Before your conscious attention lands on something, it exists as what they call a wave function, a field of pure probability where all possible outcomes exist simultaneously in a state of superposition. The impact of this discovery is absolutely revolutionary. It means that reality isn't happening to you. Reality is being created by you, specifically by your act of conscious observation. The moment you observe something, you collapse that wave of infinite possibilities into one specific outcome. You're not discovering what's there. You're literally determining what manifests through the very act of looking. And if consciousness has that much power through simple observation, imagine what happens when you add the focused vibration of language to that observation. This is the journey from passive experience to active creation. Most people walk through life believing they're observers of an objective reality that exists independent of them. But quantum physics has proven that's not how reality works. There is no objective reality independent of the observer. The observer and the observed are inseparably linked in a dance of co-creation. Your consciousness isn't just witnessing reality, it's collapsing possibility into actuality moment by moment. The revelations here show you exactly why your words are so powerful. When you describe a situation with your voice, you're doing far more than just reporting on what you see. You're taking that observation, which is already collapsing infinite possibilities into specific form, and you're amplifying it with vibration, with frequency, with the concentrated power of language. You're essentially double-locking that reality into place, first through observation, then through declaration. Behind the scenes of every moment, you're participating in this quantum dance of creation. When you look at your bank account and say, "I'm broke," you're not describing an objective fact. You're collapsing infinite financial possibilities into one specific outcome, and then reinforcing that collapse with the vibrational frequency of your words. When you look at a challenge and declare, "This is impossible," you're closing down all the quantum pathways that could have led to solutions and crystallizing the impossibility into your experienced reality. The mindset shift required here is understanding that you're never in a fixed situation. Every moment contains infinite potential outcomes. Your observation begins to select which outcome manifests, and your declaration seals it into physical form. Write in the comments, "I collapse possibilities into miracles," because that statement itself is a quantum instruction telling the field of infinite potential exactly what kind of outcomes you're choosing to manifest. Now, let me reveal exactly what's happening when you speak, because understanding this mechanism will forever change how you use your voice. Your words aren't contained within your body. They're not just vibrations bouncing around in your throat or sounds that dissipate a few feet from your mouth. Every syllable you utter sends ripples through the quantum field itself, that invisible ocean of pure potential that underlies all physical reality. Your speech is like dropping stones into a cosmic pond, creating waves that travel outward, intersecting with probability pathways, shifting what's likely to manifest, and what remains dormant in the realm of possibility. The hidden truth is that when you speak, you're sending coded information directly into the organizing intelligence of the universe. Think of it like programming. Every declaration you make is a line of code being written into the operating system of your reality. And just like computer code, the precision of your language determines whether you get the results you want or a system error. When you say, "I never have enough," you've just sent very specific instructions to the quantum field about what kind of financial experiences to deliver to you. When you declare, "Abundance flows to me naturally," you've issued a completely different set of instructions that will produce completely different results. The impact of recognizing this is that you can never again pretend your words don't matter. You can never again claim that you're just venting or just expressing how you feel in the moment. Every expression is a transmission. Every statement is programming. Every declaration is reorganizing the probabilities of what you'll experience tomorrow, next week, next year. You're not describing your future when you speak. You're constructing it, one sentence at a time, one frequency at a time, one quantum instruction at a time. This is the journey from powerlessness to mastery. Most people feel like victims of circumstances beyond their control because they don't understand that they're the ones sending the instructions that create those circumstances. They're programming limitation and then feeling trapped by it. They're broadcasting lack and then feeling frustrated when abundance doesn't arrive. They're commanding impossibility and then feeling defeated when miracles don't happen. But once you understand that your speech is literally reorganizing probability at the quantum level, you gain access to a power that most people never even know exists. The revelations get even more profound when you understand the difference between two completely different ways of using language. There's petition and there's command. There's begging and there's declaring. There's hoping something might happen and there's knowing something must happen. Think about the story of Lazarus in the biblical texts. When Jesus stood at that tomb, he didn't say, "God, if you're willing, could you maybe possibly consider bringing Lazarus back?" He didn't pray hopefully or wishfully. He commanded, "Lazarus, come forth." 3 words, absolute. Certainty, zero doubt. And reality had no choice but to obey because the command came from a consciousness that was completely aligned with divine creative power. That's the crucial difference that separates those who manifest easily from those who struggle endlessly. Petition comes from a mindset of separation. It assumes you're disconnected from the source of power, begging an external authority to maybe grant your request if you're lucky or worthy enough. Declaration comes from a mindset of unity. It recognizes that you are an expression of that same creative power, and when you speak with authority, you're not asking permission from some distant force. You're exercising the inherent power that flows through you as your birthright. Behind the scenes of every powerful manifestation is this quality of certainty. Not hope, not wish, not desire tinged with doubt. Pure, absolute, unshakable certainty. When you declare something from that place of knowing, you're not trying to convince the universe or negotiate with reality. You're simply stating what is true from a higher perspective, and the physical realm reorganizes itself to match that truth. This is what Jesus demonstrated, what every master throughout history has shown us. That when consciousness speaks from complete alignment with divine truth, matter must comply. The transformation required here is shifting from the energy of petition to the energy of command. From "please let this work" to "this is done." From "I hope I can" to "I am." From "maybe someday" to "it is accomplished now." This isn't about developing arrogance or pretending you have powers you don't possess. This is about recognizing the power you've always had but have been afraid to claim, or didn't know how to access, or were taught to believe wasn't yours to use. Write in the comments, "I command my reality with divine authority," because when you declare this, you're stepping into a completely different relationship with existence itself. 1. Where you're no longer a beggar, but a creator. Now let me show you one of the most devastating phrases in human language. Two simple words that have destroyed more dreams, blocked more possibilities, and sealed more people into lives of limitation than perhaps any other combination of sounds. When you say, "I can't," you think you're just describing a current inability or acknowledging a realistic limitation. But here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. You're issuing a direct, military command to an invisible army of quantum forces that exists solely to serve your declarations. And that command is this: build walls, block pathways, close doors, make sure this thing I'm declaring as impossible remains impossible for me. Think about it like this. Imagine you have thousands of workers standing by, ready to construct whatever you tell them to build. When you say, "I can't afford that," they immediately start erecting financial barriers around you. When you say, "I can't find love," they begin constructing emotional walls that repel connection. When you say, "I can't succeed at this," they systematically close off every path that could lead to your success. These workers aren't trying to hurt you. They're perfectly obedient servants doing exactly what you've commanded them to do. The tragedy is that you don't realize you're giving these commands every time those words leave your mouth. The hidden truth is that "I can't" is never a neutral observation. It's always a creative decree. And what makes it so particularly powerful and particularly dangerous is the certainty with which people say it. Nobody says, "I can't," tentatively or doubtfully. They say it with complete conviction, absolute certainty, total confidence in their inability. And remember, the universe responds to the strength of your conviction, not the content of your desire. When you say "I can't" with rock-solid certainty, you've just issued the most powerful type of creative command possible, one backed by total faith in limitation. The transformation available to you is recognizing that you can change those two words and completely change your reality. "I can't" becomes "I'm learning how." "I can't afford it" becomes "I'm creating new streams of income." "I can't do this" becomes "I'm discovering the way." These aren't just more positive versions of the same thought. These are fundamentally different commands being sent to that invisible army of quantum forces. Instead of building walls, they're now opening pathways. Instead of blocking possibilities, they're revealing solutions. The revelations go even deeper because what you need to understand is that your voice carries something no one else's voice carries. Your unique vibrational signature. Just like your fingerprint is absolutely unique to you, just like your DNA is unrepeatable, the energetic signature of your voice is yours and yours alone. When you speak, you're not just transmitting words. You're broadcasting an incredibly complex package of information that includes everything you are in that moment. Your current emotional state, your deepest beliefs about yourself and reality, your entire history of experiences, and most importantly, your exact level of conviction or doubt about what you're saying. The impact of this understanding is massive because it explains why affirmations work for some people and not for others. Two people can say the exact same words, but get radically different results. And it's because they're broadcasting completely different vibrational signatures. One person says, "I am abundant," while their signature broadcasts genuine alignment, past experiences of receiving, zero resistance, total expectation of more abundance flowing in. Another person says the identical words, while their signature broadcasts desperate hope, history of lack, massive internal resistance, deep doubt that this is really possible for them. Same words, opposite signatures, opposite results. This is the journey from mechanical repetition to authentic embodiment. Most people are trying to use words like magic spells, as if the syllables themselves contain power independent of the speaker. But the ancient masters knew better. They understood that words are vehicles for consciousness, and the power flows from the consciousness animating the words, not from the words themselves. This is why you can't just copy someone else's affirmations or declarations and expect the same results. You have to develop your own vibrational signature of certainty, your own frequency of knowing, your own energetic state of alignment with what you're declaring. The mindset required here is understanding that before you work on your words, you need to work on your internal state. Before you declare abundance, you need to cultivate the feeling of abundance. Before you speak health, you need to embody wellness. Before you command success, you need to align with the consciousness of someone for whom success is natural and expected, because your vibrational signature will always tell the truth about what you actually believe, regardless of what words you're speaking. Write in the comments, "My signature broadcasts certainty," because making that declaration begins to shift the energetic quality of everything you speak from doubt-based petition to power-based command. Now let me reveal why so many people feel frustrated and disillusioned with manifestation practices despite following all the instructions perfectly. They're saying all the right words, using all the correct phrases, repeating their affirmations faithfully every single morning, and nothing changes. Their external reality remains stubbornly fixed in the same patterns they're trying to transcend. And they start to believe that this whole thing doesn't work, that it's just new age nonsense, that they must be doing something wrong, or that they're somehow broken or not spiritual enough to make it work. But here's the hidden truth that nobody wants to hear, because it requires taking radical responsibility. The universe isn't responding to what you're saying with your mouth. It's responding to what you're broadcasting with your entire being. Your words are just the surface level. Underneath those words is a massive transmission of energy, emotion, belief, history, and conviction. And that's what the quantum field actually receives and responds to. When there's a mismatch between what you're saying and what you're feeling, between your conscious affirmation and your subconscious belief, you've created what's called internal dissonance. And that dissonance completely neutralizes your creative power. Think about what happens when you stand in front of a mirror and say, "I am wealthy, I am abundant, money flows to me easily," while every cell in your body is screaming, "This is a lie, look at your bank account, you're broke, you've always been broke, this is never going to change." You've just created two opposing forces of equal strength, pushing against each other, and the result is zero movement. It's exactly like driving a car with one foot pressed hard on the accelerator and the other foot pressed equally hard on the brake. The engine roars, energy is being expended, but the car doesn't budge an inch, and then you sit there wondering why you're not getting anywhere despite all your effort. The transformation that needs to happen isn't about finding better affirmations or more powerful words. It's about resolving the internal contradiction between what you're consciously declaring and what you subconsciously believe. And this is where most manifestation teachings fail people, because they focus entirely on the conscious level, what to say, how to visualize, what to affirm, without addressing the massive iceberg of unconscious programming sitting beneath the surface, silently sabotaging every conscious effort. The journey here requires brutal honesty with yourself. You have to be willing to acknowledge that you don't actually believe the things you're affirming. You have to admit that when you say, "I deserve abundance," there's a louder voice inside saying, "Who are you kidding? People like you don't get that kind of success." You have to recognize that your words are writing checks your belief system can't cash, and the universe responds to the actual balance in your account, not to the numbers you're writing on paper. The revelations about alignment go even deeper, because what you discover is that two people can use identical words and produce completely opposite results based solely on their internal alignment. One person declares, "I deserve abundance," from a place of genuine knowing, backed by memories of receiving. supported by a self-concept of worthiness, carried by an expectation of more good things flowing their way. Their internal world matches their external declaration perfectly. The other person speaks those same words from a place of desperate hope, contradicted by memories of lack, undermined by a self-concept of unworthiness, weighed down by an expectation that nothing ever works out for them. Same words, completely different vibrational signatures, completely different results. The impact of understanding this is that you stop wasting time and energy on mechanical repetition of words you don't believe. Instead, you start doing the real work, the internal work of actually becoming someone who genuinely believes what they're declaring. You work on healing the wounds that created your limited self-concept. You rewrite the stories you've been telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve. You cultivate feelings of worthiness, abundance, and possibility, not as something you're trying to attract from outside, but as something you're generating from within. Behind the scenes of every powerful manifestation is this quality of perfect alignment between the speaker and the spoken word. There's no internal resistance. There's no hidden doubt. There's no contradictory belief system undermining the declaration. The entire being, conscious and subconscious, mind and heart, word and feeling, is pointing in the same direction with the same conviction. And when that level of coherence exists, manifestation isn't difficult or mysterious. It's natural, inevitable, almost automatic. Write in the comments, "I align my words with my truth," because that statement itself is an acknowledgement that real power comes not from the words alone, but from the unity between what you declare and what you genuinely believe. Now, let me reveal something that will completely transform when and how you use your most powerful declarations. Not all moments are created equal when it comes to the creative power of your words. There are ordinary states of consciousness where your speech has moderate impact. And then there are elevated states where your words become exponentially more powerful, almost supernaturally, effective at reshaping reality. Understanding this distinction is the difference between struggling to manifest for years versus experiencing breakthrough results in moments. Think about the times when you're immersed in deep gratitude, when your heart is overflowing with authentic love, when you've touched that place of inner peace that exists independent of your circumstances. In those elevated states, your entire vibrational signature transforms. The frequency you're broadcasting reaches levels that can literally move mountains, shift impossible situations, and create what most people would call miracles. When you speak from those states, your words carry a creative potency that's incomparable to the words you speak when you're anxious, fearful, or desperate. The hidden truth is that desperation weakens your words, no matter how perfectly you phrase them. Anxiety contaminates your declarations, regardless of how many times you repeat them. Fear creates static in your transmission that scrambles the message before it reaches the quantum field. But gratitude, love, and peace, these elevated emotional states, act like amplifiers, multiplying the power of every syllable you utter by factors you can barely imagine. This is why the ancient traditions always emphasized purifying consciousness before speaking sacred words. They knew that the state of the speaker determines the strength of the spoken word. The transformation available here is learning to cultivate these elevated states intentionally, not just waiting for them to happen randomly. Before you make your most important declarations, before you speak words of creation over your life, pause and shift your internal state. Find something genuine to be grateful for right now. Connect with love for yourself, for someone else, for life itself. Touch that center of peace within you that knows everything is unfolding perfectly. And then, from that elevated platform of consciousness, speak your truth into existence. The impact of this practice is demonstrated beautifully in a story that perfectly illustrates how words combined with elevated consciousness create tangible, measurable results in physical reality. There was a woman whose beloved fern was dying, its leaves brown and brittle, the entire plant clearly in its final days. Any reasonable person would have accepted the inevitable and prepared to throw it away. But this woman made a different decision. She sat with that dying plant and spoke to it with genuine tenderness, with authentic love, with heartfelt appreciation for its beauty and life force. She didn't speak from desperation, trying to force it to survive. She spoke from a place of recognizing its inherent perfection, declaring what was true in the realm of potential. You are beautiful. Your leaves are strong and green. The revelations in this moment are profound because what happened next defies botanical explanation. By sunset that same day, not weeks later, not gradually over time, but within hours, that fern had turned vibrant green. Its leaves were no longer brittle but vital and alive. She had changed nothing in the physical care of the plant. Same soil, same water, same location. The only variable that shifted was the frequency of her words and the consciousness from which she spoke them. She had addressed the plant's essence, not its appearance. She had spoken to what it was in potential rather than what it appeared to be in form. Behind the scenes of this seemingly miraculous recovery is a principle that operates universally, not just with plants. When you speak to the potential rather than the problem, when you declare perfection rather than describe deterioration, when you address what something is becoming rather than what it currently appears to be, you activate dormant possibilities. You literally call forth the highest potential that exists in that moment and command it to manifest into physical form. The journey this woman's story invites us on is recognizing that we can do this with every area of our lives. We can look at dying finances and speak life into them. We can observe struggling relationships and declare their renewal. We can witness our own limitations and call forth our greatest capabilities. But the key, the absolute essential ingredient, is that we must speak from that elevated state of consciousness where love, gratitude, and genuine recognition of potential override the evidence of current circumstances. The mindset shift required is understanding that your words are most powerful when your heart is most open, when your consciousness is most elevated, when your being is most aligned with source energy. This is why forcing affirmations through gritted teeth rarely works. This is why desperate declarations from a place of panic create more of what you're trying to escape. The state matters as much as the statement. Write in the comments, "I speak from elevated consciousness," because that declaration itself begins to train your awareness to wait for and cultivate those powerful moments when your words carry maximum creative force. Now, let me show you how this principle operates in the most ordinary, everyday situations, because that's where the real magic happens. Not in meditation sessions or spiritual retreats, but in the mundane moments of daily work and routine activities. There was a baker whose small business was collapsing around her. Customers had stopped coming. The bread that once drew, people from blocks away now sat unsold, and she couldn't understand what had changed, because she was using the same recipes, the same techniques, the same ingredients that had always worked before. But here's what she didn't realize was happening behind the scenes. Every morning as she kneaded her dough, her mind was racing with worry and fear. What if I can't pay rent this month? What if I have to close? This isn't going to work. She was literally kneading those frequencies: worry, fear, desperation, defeat, into every loaf she made. And her customers, without consciously understanding why, could feel that energy. They would take a bite and something would feel heavy, dense, off. The bread wasn't just carrying flour and water, it was carrying the vibration of the person who made it. And that vibration was one of struggle and despair. The transformation came when she made a simple but profound decision. She began whispering blessings to her dough as she worked with it. You are perfection taking form. Through you, nourishment and love flow to everyone who tastes you. These weren't empty words recited mechanically. They came from a genuine shift in her consciousness, from seeing her work as a burden to recognizing it as a sacred act of creation. And the impact was immediate and undeniable. That same day, the bread began coming out different, lighter, more flavorful, with a quality that customers noticed instantly, even though the recipe hadn't changed. The hidden truth she discovered is that everything you create carries your energetic signature. Every meal you prepare, every document you write, every conversation you have, every product you make, all of it is being infused with whatever frequency you're broadcasting in that moment. If you're cooking while complaining, you're serving complaint. If you're working while resenting your job, you're producing resentment. If you're creating while worried about money, you're embedding financial anxiety into your creations. And people feel this, even when they can't articulate what they're sensing. The revelations here extend to every area of life, because this isn't just about bakers and bread. Consider the bus driver who spent every day declaring, "This traffic is impossible. We're never going to get through this. This is a nightmare." And every single day, he experienced exactly what he declared: impossible traffic, constant delays, frustrating gridlock. He thought he was just describing reality, just commenting on obvious facts, but he was actually commanding reality to maintain those exact conditions. The journey he embarked on started with a simple experiment. What if he changed his declarations? What if instead of announcing impossibility, he declared flow? The road opens before us. We move through this with perfect timing. At first, the words felt absurd coming out of his mouth while staring at bumper-to-bumper traffic, but he sustained the new frequency despite the contradicting evidence. And then something extraordinary began happening. Traffic patterns started shifting in ways that made no logical sense. Lights would turn green with perfect synchronization just as he approached. Vehicles blocking his path would suddenly find space to move. Alternate routes would inexplicably open up. Behind the scenes of both these stories is the same fundamental principle operating. Your words don't just describe your experience, they prescribe it. They don't report on reality, they create it. And when you infuse your words with elevated consciousness, with genuine love, with authentic blessing rather than unconscious worry, you transform not just what you're speaking to, but your entire surrounding environment. The baker's customers returned because they could taste the love in the bread. The bus driver's passengers relaxed because they could feel the flow he was creating. The mindset required here is recognizing that you're never having a neutral experience. You're always either infusing your environment with elevated frequencies or contaminating it with lower ones. Every moment of your work, every interaction, every creation is an opportunity to be a conduit for blessing or a channel for complaint. And whatever you choose to transmit through your words and your consciousness, that's what multiplies and returns to you. Write in the comments, "I infuse everything with blessing," because that declaration begins to shift your awareness toward the sacred nature of every moment and every word you speak throughout your entire day. Now let me take you deeper into something that will completely shift how you approach every struggling area of your life. If a woman's words could revitalize a dying fern in a matter of hours, if a baker's blessings could transform bread and resurrect a failing business, if a bus driver's declarations could literally reorganize traffic patterns, what does that tell you about the power you have over your own relationships, your health, your finances, your career? The same principle operates everywhere. The same creative force that responds to your words when directed at a plant is the same force that governs every atom of your existence and every circumstance in your experience. But here's where most people get it tragically wrong. They look at the withering areas of their lives, the deteriorating relationship, the declining health, the shrinking bank account, and they describe exactly what they see. They narrate the decline in vivid detail. They announce how bad things have gotten. They explain to anyone who will listen exactly how their situation is falling apart. And in doing so, they're speaking life into the death. They're watering the weeds. They're commanding the very deterioration they claim they want to stop. The transformation requires a complete reversal of this habit. Instead of describing what appears to be dying, you must speak to what is trying to be born. Instead of narrating deterioration, you must declare regeneration. Instead of announcing what's broken, you must call forth what's becoming whole. This isn't denial of reality. This is recognition that there are multiple realities available in every moment, and whichever one you give your words to is the one that gains strength and manifests more fully. The revelations about how to actually do this effectively come from understanding a crucial distinction that changed everything for one woman who had been struggling with this exact problem. She had spent months standing in front of her mirror saying, "I am abundant, I am prosperous, money flows to me easily," and absolutely nothing in her external reality was changing. The affirmations felt hollow, false, like lies she was trying to convince herself to believe, and that's exactly what they were, attempted self-deception that her subconscious mind rejected completely. The breakthrough came when she stopped trying to affirm abundance she didn't genuinely feel, and instead began recognizing abundance that was already undeniably present. She started noticing the air filling her lungs with every breath, abundant oxygen freely given. She observed the sunlight streaming through her window, abundant energy pouring from a star millions of miles away, asking nothing in return. She felt her heart beating, her cells regenerating, her immune system protecting her, abundant life force operating through her body without any conscious effort required. And in that recognition of genuine, undeniable abundance already present, something fundamental shifted in her vibrational signature. The impact of this shift cannot be overstated because she stopped broadcasting from a frequency of lack, trying to attract abundance. She started broadcasting from a frequency of abundance, recognizing more abundance. And the universe, responding to frequency rather than words, began delivering experiences that matched her new transmission. Opportunities appeared. Money showed up from unexpected sources. Resources she needed materialized with perfect timing, not because she had used better affirmations, but because she had genuinely shifted from lack consciousness to abundance consciousness through the simple act of recognition. This is the journey from fake it till you make it to recognize it, and it expands. You don't need to pretend you have money you don't have. You need to recognize the wealth you do have in relationships, in health, in capabilities, in resources that aren't measured in currency. You don't need to lie to yourself about problems that exist. You need to recognize the solutions, growth, and potential that exist alongside those problems. The moment you shift from trying to convince yourself of something you don't believe to recognizing something that's genuinely, undeniably true, your entire energetic transmission transforms. Behind the scenes of this transformation is an understanding that gratitude for what is opens the door for more to flow. In resentment about what isn't seals that door shut. When you look at your life and can genuinely recognize and appreciate the abundance already present, even if it's not in the form you ultimately want, you activate a magnetic force that draws more abundance toward you. When you look at your life and only see lack, limitation, and what's missing, you activate a repelling force that pushes abundance away. The hidden truth is that abundance isn't something you need to create from nothing. It's something you need to recognize, acknowledge, appreciate, and allow to expand. It's already here, already flowing, already available. Your words of recognition are simply opening your awareness to receive what's been waiting for you all along. Write in the comments, "I recognize abundance everywhere," because that declaration trains your consciousness to start seeing the wealth that surrounds you, and what you see with gratitude multiplies in your experience. Now let me reveal something about the nature of reality that will completely liberate you from the exhausting belief that you have to create everything from scratch. There's a quantum principle that ancient mystics understood intuitively, and modern physicists have now confirmed mathematically. In the invisible field of infinite possibilities, everything already exists. Every version of your life that you can imagine, every outcome you desire, every experience you long for, it's all already present right now as a latent possibility, a potential reality waiting to be activated, selected, and brought into manifestation. This changes everything about how you understand the power of your words. You're not speaking things into existence from absolute nothingness. You're tuning your consciousness, like adjusting a radio dial, to align with the specific frequency of the reality you want to experience. Your words aren't magic spells creating something that doesn't exist. They're precision instruments calibrating your vibrational frequency to match a version of reality that's already there, already available, already waiting for you to tune into it. The hidden truth is that there's a version of you right now living in perfect health, another version experiencing financial abundance, another version enjoying deeply fulfilling relationships, another version expressing your gifts with confidence and mastery. These aren't fantasies or future possibilities. They exist now in the quantum field as real potentials. And the only thing determining which version you experience is the frequency you're consistently broadcasting through your thoughts, emotions, and most powerfully, your spoken words. The transformation happens when you stop trying so hard to create and start learning to tune. You're not building a new reality from raw materials. You're selecting from infinite realities already built, already available, already accessible, the moment you match their frequency. This is why forcing and straining rarely produces results. You can't force your way into a different frequency. You tune into it through alignment, through resonance, through speaking and feeling and believing in harmony with the reality you're selecting. The revelations about how this actually operates in practical life are beautifully demonstrated by a violinist who had mastered his instrument technically but was being destroyed by stage fright. His hands would tremble uncontrollably the moment he stepped in front of an audience. His breathing would become shallow and rapid. His mind would go blank, and the root cause wasn't a physical problem or a lack of skill. It was his internal dialogue issuing commands to his nervous system moment by moment. You're going to fail. Your hands are going to shake. Everyone will see your weakness. This is going to be a disaster. These weren't just worried thoughts. These were precise instructions his nervous system was receiving and obeying with perfect fidelity. His body was simply doing exactly what his words commanded it to do. The trembling wasn't a mysterious malfunction. It was loyal obedience to clear orders. His rapid heartbeat, his shallow breathing, his mental paralysis, all of it was his system responding to the commands encoded in his internal dialogue. The journey toward freedom began when he understood that he could change the commands. Instead of declaring failure, he started declaring flow. Music moves through me with perfect ease. My hands respond with precision and grace. I am the instrument through which beauty expresses itself. And here's what happened behind the scenes. His nervous system, which doesn't distinguish between true and false commands, but simply obeys whatever it receives most consistently and most powerfully, began receiving different instructions. The impact was immediate and measurable. The trembling diminished, not because his anxiety disappeared, but because he was giving his body stronger commands than the Fear was generating. His breathing stabilized, not because the pressure went away, but because he was instructing his system to operate in ease rather than panic. His mind cleared, not because the stakes lowered, but because he stopped programming confusion and started declaring clarity. The mindset shift required here is understanding that your body, your nervous system, your entire physical experience is remarkably obedient to your verbal commands. Most people don't realize they're constantly giving their bodies instructions through their internal and external dialogue. I'm so tired, programs fatigue. I'm getting sick, activates immune suppression. I can't handle this, triggers stress responses. These aren't descriptions of states, they're commands creating states. When you recognize that everything you want to experience already exists as a possibility, and that your words are the tuning mechanism selecting which possibility manifests, you gain incredible power. You stop trying to convince reality to give you something it doesn't have. You start tuning into the frequency of the reality that already contains what you desire. Write in the comments, I tune into my highest reality, because that declaration is itself an act of frequency adjustment, shifting your consciousness toward alignment with the best versions of your life that already exist in the field of infinite potential. Now, let me show you something that most people completely overlook because it's hidden behind the disguise of humor and casualness. There was a woman whose sharp wit and sarcastic commentary made her the center of attention at social gatherings. People laughed at her cutting observations, her cynical takes on life, her ability to find the disappointing angle in any situation. Life is just one disappointment after another, but at least we're all failing together, she'd say with a knowing smile, and everyone would laugh because it felt so relatable, so honest, so real. But here's what was happening behind the scenes of those clever comments. Every sarcastic declaration, every cynical observation, every joke wrapped in disappointment was broadcasting a specific frequency into her personal quantum field. The universe doesn't understand sarcasm. It doesn't recognize when you're just kidding or being ironic. It only receives the vibrational signature of what you're declaring. And she was declaring with remarkable consistency and conviction that life equals disappointment, that people are fundamentally untrustworthy, that hope is naive, and expectations lead to letdown. The impact of this habitual sarcasm was devastating in ways she never connected to her speech patterns. Friends gradually drifted away without explanation. Job opportunities that seemed promising would mysteriously fall through at the last moment. Relationships would start with excitement and end in the exact disappointment she joked about so cleverly. She thought she was just being realistic, in calling it like it is, just protecting herself with humor from life's inevitable letdowns. But she was actually commanding those letdowns into existence with every witty, cynical word. The transformation came through a moment of painful clarity when she realized her life had become a perfect reflection of her most frequent declarations. Everything she sarcastically predicted kept manifesting with eerie precision. The revelation hit her. She wasn't observing reality and commenting on it. She was creating reality through her commentary. Her words, even when delivered as jokes, were instructions the universe was following to the letter. When she made the decision to shift her language from sarcastic to playful, from cynical to genuinely appreciative, something extraordinary happened. She didn't lose her personality or become fake. She simply removed the cutting edge from her humor, the hidden blade of bitterness beneath her wit. And within weeks, friends who had distanced themselves started reaching out again. Opportunities began appearing where doors had been closed. Her entire experience of reality softened, opened, became more generous and flowing. The hidden truth she discovered applies to everyone. Tone matters as much as content. You can say something technically positive with a tone of resentment and create negative results. You can make an observation with a tone of appreciation and create positive expansion. Your vibrational signature includes not just your words, but the emotional frequency coloring those words, the intention behind them, the subtle energies they carry. This journey into understanding how grammar itself shapes reality goes even deeper when you look at something as simple as the words must versus can. A teacher discovered this when he noticed how heavy his life had become, how every task felt like a burden, how even work he once loved had transformed into obligation and drudgery. I must grade these papers. I must prepare tomorrow's lesson. I must attend this meeting. Every must was a chain binding him to resentment. Every obligation was draining his energy before he even began the task. The revelations came through a grammatical experiment that seemed almost too simple to be effective. He changed one word. I must became I can. I can grade these papers now. I can prepare an inspiring lesson. I can contribute to this meeting. This wasn't just semantic gaming or positive spin. This was a fundamental shift from the frequency of slavery to the frequency of freedom, from obligation to choice, from burden to opportunity. The transformation in his classroom was immediate and visible. Students who had been resistant and disengaged suddenly became curious and participatory. The atmosphere shifted from heavy to light, from oppressive to expansive. Nothing had changed in his curriculum or teaching methods. Everything changed in his vibrational broadcast, in the frequency he was emitting through his reframed language. Must carries the vibration of imprisonment. Can carries the vibration of empowerment. And students, being remarkably sensitive to energetic frequencies, responded to the shift instantly. Behind the scenes of both these stories is the same principle. The universe is reading your complete transmission, your words, your tone, your grammar, your emotional charge, your underlying frequency. You can't game the system by saying the right words with the wrong energy. But when you shift your complete transmission to one of genuine appreciation, possibility, and freedom, reality must reorganize itself to match. Write in the comments, I speak in the grammar of freedom, because that declaration begins to shift your habitual language patterns from obligation-based to choice-based, from burden to opportunity, from slavery to sovereignty. Now, let me reveal something about the specific words you use to describe your physical state, because this has immediate and measurable effects on your actual energy levels. There was a mailman who walked miles every day delivering packages and letters, climbing stairs, carrying weight, moving through all kinds of weather. The physical demands of his job were real and undeniable. But what was destroying him wasn't the work itself. It was the constant declaration he made throughout his day. I'm so tired, I'm exhausted, I'm worn out. He said it so often it became his identity, his automatic response when anyone asked how he was doing. The hidden truth is that every time he declared I'm tired, he was issuing a command to his cellular structure, to his mitochondria, to his entire energy system. He was essentially telling his body, deplete yourself, drain your reserves, experience exhaustion. And his body, being the obedient servant it is, followed those instructions perfectly. The more he declared tiredness, the more tired he became, creating a downward spiral where his words and his experience reinforced each other in an endless loop of depletion. The transformation came through a simple linguistic shift that seemed almost ridiculously small, but produced massive results. He changed I'm tired to I'm recharging. Instead of declaring depletion, he declared renewal. Instead of commanding exhaustion, he commanded regeneration. And something extraordinary happened in his physical experience. He stopped experiencing himself as a battery slowly draining toward empty. He began experiencing himself as a circuit, connected to an infinite source of energy, constantly renewing, perpetually regenerating. The impact was so dramatic that his co-workers noticed. His energy at the end of long shifts remained surprisingly high. His recovery between workdays accelerated. His entire relationship with physical exertion transformed, not because the work changed, but because his declaration about the work changed. He had discovered that your body listens to your words more than it listens to external circumstances. You can perform the exact same physical activity and experience it as depleting or energizing based solely on how you speak about it. This journey into understanding how words shape experience goes even deeper when you look at what happens with internal dialogue, the constant stream of unspoken words flowing through your consciousness every moment. A woman who had been struggling with meditation for months, trying desperately to quiet her mind and achieve that elusive state of inner peace, discovered something that changed everything. Every time she sat to meditate, her mind would race with thoughts, and she would fight against them, creating tension and frustration that made meditation feel like torture rather than peace. The breakthrough came when she stopped fighting her thoughts and started directing them intentionally. As she sat in her usual meditation spot in a park, she began silently blessing every person who walked past. May you be blessed with joy. May light fill your path. May peace embrace you. These weren't spoken aloud. They were silent transmissions of genuine goodwill flowing from her heart toward others. And something miraculous happened. Without any effort or struggle, she dropped into the deepest meditation she had ever experienced. The revelations in this moment are profound because she discovered that the path to inner peace isn't through forcefully emptying your mind. It's through filling your mind with elevated intentions and benevolent focus. When you're genuinely blessing others, when your consciousness is occupied with transmitting love and goodwill, there's no room for the usual mental chaos that meditation seeks to quiet. You're not suppressing thoughts. You're replacing low-frequency thoughts with high-frequency ones. But what happened next was even more extraordinary. Her external environment began responding to her internal blessings in ways that defied rational explanation. People she had blessed silently would turn around as if feeling something, smile at her for no apparent reason, or even approach her to say they felt an unexpected wave of peace wash over them. Synchronicities multiplied. The right people appeared at the right times. Opportunities manifested with uncanny precision. She had discovered that silent blessings aren't just internal practices, they're energetic transmissions that affect the quantum field around you. Behind the scenes of both these stories is the same principle operating. Your words, whether spoken aloud or declared silently, are creative forces that shape both your internal state and your external experience. The mailman's shift from tired to recharging reprogrammed his energy system. The woman's shift from fighting thoughts to blessing others transformed both her meditation practice and her entire reality. Neither of them changed their circumstances. They changed their declarations, and their circumstances responded by changing themselves. Write in the comments, "My words renew my energy," because that declaration begins to reprogram your relationship with fatigue, effort, and vitality, shifting you from depletion consciousness to regeneration consciousness. Now let me show you one of the most powerful applications of everything we've discussed, a practice that collapses the distance between desire and fulfillment, between wanting and having, between future possibility and present reality. There was a farmer whose land had become a cracked, parched wasteland under relentless drought. Every weather forecast predicted more endless sunshine. Every neighboring farm was suffering the same fate. Logic said there was no hope, no rain coming, no relief in sight. But this farmer understood something that transcended meteorology and conventional thinking. Every morning, he would walk across his dried, fractured fields and speak words that sounded absolutely insane to anyone who might have overheard them. Thank you for the water that gives life. Thank you for the rain that nourishes this soil. Thank you for the abundance flowing from the sky. He wasn't hoping for rain. He wasn't praying desperately for water. He was thanking the universe for something that hadn't yet manifested in physical form, as if it already existed, as if it was already done, as if the rain was already falling, even though the sky remained cloudless and blue. The hidden truth in this practice is that gratitude before manifestation is one of the most potent forms of creation available to human consciousness. When you thank the universe for something before it appears, you're doing something quantum physics can actually explain. You're collapsing the wave function of probability. You're selecting a specific timeline from infinite possible timelines. You're broadcasting the frequency of someone who already has what they desire, and that frequency magnetizes the corresponding reality toward you. The impact of his consistent practice was extraordinary and undeniable. Against all meteorological predictions, against all statistical probability, clouds began forming specifically over his farm. Rain fell where forecasts had promised only drought. His fields received water while neighboring properties remained dry. Scientists would call it localized weather anomaly. Meteorologists would struggle to explain it. But anyone who understands the creative power of elevated consciousness combined with gratitude-based declaration would recognize exactly what happened. He had aligned his frequency so perfectly with the reality of abundant water that the quantum field had no choice but to deliver it. This journey we've been on together leads to one ultimate revelation that changes everything, a truth so profound that once you really grasp it, you can never see yourself the same way again. You are not someone trying to learn how to use word power as an external technique. You are not a student studying a skill that exists separate from you. You are the creative word made flesh. Your very existence is the universe speaking itself into form, experiencing itself, creating itself through the unique focal point of consciousness that is you. Every breath you take is divine breath moving through you. Every word you speak is cosmic creative power expressing itself. Every thought you think is universal intelligence exploring possibility. You're not separate from the source trying to access its power. You are that source, localized in human form, equipped with the same creative mechanism that brought galaxies into existence. The power of conscious declaration, the force of the spoken word. The transformation available in this recognition is absolute liberation from the seeking mentality. You stop searching for power outside yourself because you realize the power has been flowing through you all along. You stop trying to become worthy of manifestation because you recognize you are made of the very substance that creates worlds. You stop questioning whether your words have power because you understand that your words are power, that every syllable is the universe speaking itself into new configurations of experience. Behind the scenes of your entire life, this truth has been operating whether you recognized it or not. Every word you've ever spoken has been divine creative force in action. Every declaration has been cosmic law being written. Every statement has been reality organizing itself according to your command. You haven't been doing this wrong. You've been doing it unconsciously, and now with this awareness, with this recognition of what you actually are, you can begin doing it consciously, intentionally, powerfully. The mindset shift is from I'm learning to manifest to I am manifestation itself. From I want to create my reality to I am reality creating itself. From I hope my words work to my words are the mechanism through which the universe expresses its infinite creative potential. Write in the comments, I am the living word, because that declaration is the recognition of your true nature, the acknowledgement of what you've always been, and the activation of everything you're capable of becoming. If you've made it all the way to this moment with me, I want you to know that's not accidental. Something in you recognizes these truths. Something in your consciousness is ready to reclaim this power. And I'm genuinely grateful you chose to spend this time exploring these revelations together. There's so much more to discover on this journey of conscious creation, so many more layers to unpack about how reality actually works and how your voice shapes every aspect of your experience. If this content resonated with you, if you felt these words speaking directly to something you've always known but couldn't quite articulate, then subscribe to this channel. This is where we dive deep into the mechanisms of manifestation, the science of consciousness, the practical application of spiritual principles. This is where transformation isn't just discussed, it's activated. Let me know you made it to the end by writing in the comments, "This message was meant for me." I read every comment, and there's something powerful about declaring your presence, about announcing that you're here, that you're ready, that you recognize yourself in these teachings. Your comment isn't just engagement, it's a declaration that you're stepping into conscious creation. And if you found value in what we explored today, hit that like button, not as a formality but as an acknowledgement of the connection we've built through these words, as a way of telling the universe, yes, more of this energy, more of this frequency, more of this truth. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even deeper, showing you exactly how to apply these principles in specific areas of your life. Click and continue with me over there. This journey is just beginning, and the next level is waiting for you. Until then, remember, every word you speak is the universe creating itself through you. Choose consciously, speak powerfully, create intentionally. I'll see you in the next one.